Hello, everyone, and welcome into the drive here on a perfect summer day. Not too hot, not too cold, no rain, just a nice day. Brought to you by Next Home Experience, the market leader. Get looped and get sold with Next Home Experience. The weather about the only thing nice over the past few days for United States fans, Boston Celtics fans.
I got to tell you, we've been away since last Thursday, and I just used it as a sports detox.
Yeah,
Other than like the World Cup, a little golf, check out.
There you go.
Because the last thing I remember is getting my heart hurt by Brad Stevens and the Boston Celtics.
Here's what we have coming up in today's show. We'll have plenty of sound from Brad Stevens and Bill Chisholm on their press conference yesterday regarding the Jaylen Brown trade. We'll talk to Justin Turpin of WEEI. He'll cover the Celtics, and we might go to some general Boston stuff, depending on how sad we feel about the Jaylen Brown thing. We'll talk a little World Cup. We'll talk about it later in this hour. We'll talk about it now early on in the show as well. Second hour of the show, the drive poll, Sox props, and some Sox talk. They've won 8 of 10. Don't look now, but they're almost out of the basement.
Don't look now. Only 8 games under 500.
Yeah. John Corrales will join us from Sports Illustrated and the Locked On Celtics podcast, and then we'll take buzzer beaters. And the Red Sox play the White Sox tonight, correct? Yes.
Sox versus Sox.
Yes, Sox on Sox. Peyton Tolley, 4-6, 3.39 ERA, looking to rebound after a pretty bad start his last time out against Noah Schultz. Randy Johnson dupe that is like the Temu version of Randy Johnson.
Yeah, pretty wild, high ERA.
Yeah, when he has it going, man, it's impressive to watch. He just doesn't have it going often.
It's the rare occasion that Peyton Tolley is the smaller of the two pitchers on the mound tonight.
Yeah, when you see Noah, he looks like a flamingo trying to pitch a baseball. The dude is massive. And
6'10".
His stuff is electric. He just can't control it. And so we'll see how that matchup goes tonight. The White Sox, by the way, still good. 47-42 on the season. 5 games over 500.
Leaders of the AL Central.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise there. Perhaps a couple of years ahead of their trajectory. And it helps when you pick up guys like Muntaka Murakami, who is just, when he was healthy and not injured, slugging the crap out of the ball.
They got a lot of power in their lineup.
Yeah.
Something that the Red Sox, I mean, they're starting to get a little more of it, but between him, between Montgomery, the shortstop, between Vargas, the second baseman, third baseman that they got going, like,
if
they've
only
got 320 homer guys.
If only they could have gotten Murakami for a song, Red Sox meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, they could have got him for what, like $15 million a year, but that's nowhere to start off on a Monday when we have plenty of Monday in our heads.
Yeah. All right, so we heard from Brad Stevens. Let's start there, and he gave a lot of reasons as to why the deal had to happen, financial reasons. I did find it interesting, and this was the biggest takeaway that I had, is that he went out of his way to say financially this is what makes sense, that you can't have two guys taking up that percentage of your salary cap in today's NBA with the way the aprons are going and all the things and the team makeup. But then Bill Chisholm got up there.
Yeah, let me play the role of Bill Chisholm. What?
And
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Now let's hear from the owner of or at least the mouthpiece of the owners of the Boston Celtics, saying pretty much the opposite of what Brad Stevens had previously just said sitting next to him.
How do people that control the most money in the world say things so stupid?
Yeah.
Because you had the opportunity, Bill. You had the opportunity to have 2 max players on your team for the next decade if you wanted it. What are you talking about when we have the opportunity to show you how much we want? You've had the opportunity. You showed us what you do with that opportunity.
Now let me attempt to parse their tea leaves, because I do think I understand what they're saying, and while they're saying different things that feel like they're butting heads with each other, there is a path you can weave.
Oh, I know what Brad's trying to say, and like, it's just you got worse from this move. So
sure,
save us that lip service.
Yeah,
is basically all I'm saying.
What Brad is saying is you can't have 2 players take up this percentage of your total monetary costs. What Bill Chisholm is saying is that we're comfortable paying the same amount of money we were paying before. It's not about the overall amount of money. And then Brad Stevens is again saying it's about who's getting the percentages of the pie of the money.
Yeah.
And so they're 2 different things, but when you weave that narrative to an extent, you can make it work. Now, Bill Chisholm now has an opportunity to put up or shut up in terms of, okay, You eventually are going to save some money because Paul George won't be around for too long. And once that happens, do you reinvest that or do you do what the Red Sox do,
Exactly.
which is time and time again, say, well, we're saving money in X so that we can invest in Y, but then never invest in Y.
Because ultimately, like, that's why this deal has some sort of value in Brad Stevens' eyes and in ownership's eyes. Not so much fans, because you still got Paul George for a very hefty price tag next year. And the following year, because nobody expects him to opt out of his player option at that point. But what it is expiring money, so that contract could become very easy to move as early as next summer, because that's just how the NBA works.
Sure.
Expiring money is sexy to teams looking to take it on. So they could get out from under it, and then you're looking at basically forking over 65% of the cap, because Tatum's still eating up 35% of it and George is still eating up 30 to 32% of it for only 1 year, as opposed to the 3 years that were remaining on Jaylen Brown's contract.
Plus, the Supermax would have been an issue.
Correct. That he would have been
frankly
offered now that tacks on to years 4 and 5 after those 3 years. So this budget issue is extending out for another half decade beyond just potentially the 26-27 season.
Yeah.
All that is well and good. If I'm an accountant looking at the bottom line, I don't give a damn about it. As a Celtic fan, as a basketball fan, you got worse. What are you going to do to get better?
Right. Now, to take the logic that I just applied to what they were saying and how you can weave that narrative to make it work, which I do think is what they're trying to say. I do think it's about the pieces of the pie, not the pie as a whole. The problem is that kind of falls apart when you then look at what cropped up and what caused all of this to happen. And it was Jaylen Brown was being offered in trades for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And you think really quickly, oh, well, if you're trading for Giannis, the whole point was you're going to sign him to the Supermax extension, and the Celtics appeared willing to do so, and I can't imagine they wouldn't have made that move if they weren't that. So in that scenario, that's when you start talking out of both sides of your mouth. You're basically saying Jaylen Brown is not worth that Supermax money. He's not worth that percentage of the pie, but Giannis would have been, and that's an argument to be made, and I think it's a good argument that you could make, but it doesn't hold up to what Brad Stevens just said. And I know someone should have asked him, like, okay, maybe they did. I didn't listen to the whole presser. Why were you so willing to trade for Giannis then, knowing that he would take up as big a piece of pie as Jaylen Brown did? And you were very willing, clearly, to make that move. So why is it that Giannis is worth that piece of the pie, but Jaylen Brown is not? And I don't think he would have given you a good answer there, but I would have loved to hear the question.
Well, so we have one soundbite. I was going to save it for the bump coming up for John Corrales next hour, but we can play it for both. Basically, Brad gets done talking about or explaining why it's so difficult to have the two at 70% of the cap moving forward.
Yeah, and that's a fair assessment, I think.
And John Corrales counters with, well, you've got that now with Paul George, so right. What are the next moves? Here's how Brad answered that.
So, I mean, it sounds like they don't have any plans to do anything else right now. And there's not a ton of options for them to do because, again, the really financial situation hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is the longevity of the situation.
Yep.
But in terms of the Celtics' finances, they are just as close to being a mess now as they were before they traded Jaylen Brown. And as you said, they are worse as a team, which is not debatable in my mind.
Optionality was the buzzword of that press conference yesterday between Brad Stevens and Bill Chisholm, and I don't know what the options are at this moment for the Celtics, unless it's throw the entire war chest at Trey Murphy III, because there's the reports that New Orleans is asking for one less draft pick for him, so maybe it's a player plus 3, and now the Celtics have upwards of 4 or 5 after the trade for Paul George.
But then guess what you're going to have to do with him?
Exactly.
You're going to have to sign him to a Supermax deal, or at least a very large deal.
I mean, he's already on a deal that's making upwards of like $30 million, so it would he would be taking Derek White's money spot basically on the team.
Right, and so no matter how you look at it, guys are getting paid because they're talented. And frankly, you look at this team right now and you think to yourself, like, Peyton Pritchard is due a big payday. Like, that's coming.
Yeah, massive
that's
after
coming
this year.
Right. And he's going to get paid. Like, someone like the Hawks or the Pistons is going to be like, we really could use a three-point shooter that can dribble really well.
Is that part of the optionality? And is that a reasoning that Celtic fans want to hear and get behind, that we had to trade Jaylen Brown so that we can sign Peyton Pritchard and all these other role pieces to extensions later on? I
do think that internally, Brad Stevens and crew probably feel like they can get a lot more out of the Hugo Gonzalez's, the Baylor Shiremans, the Peyton Pritchards even, that they all have another step that they can take, and perhaps Jaylen Brown was holding them back. I could buy part of that. I think Jaylen Brown probably, of course he is, by default, because he's playing X amount of minutes and taking X amount of opportunities. But that doesn't mean that those guys can fill that gap in totality, and I just don't see how that's going to happen. And then you say, well, Paul George can fill some of that for like 30 games.
Yeah, for a series is when Paul George looks good. Over the course of a year is when he doesn't. I heard someone say something the other day, and I kind of found myself nodding my head, and it was I can't remember if it was ESPN or who it was, but it was the Celtics will probably be a better regular season team next year. And I do actually buy that because I think they're younger, they're athletic, and they've got a bunch of guys that need to prove it. But they're not going to be a better playoff team than the Sixers are. And that's ultimately when it matters. Oh, God, yeah.
So
not
I think
I
I would not be surprised to see the Celtics finish higher than the Sixers in the regular season.
Well, the odds still suggest that. The Celtics are at like 51 in the sports books, and Sixers are at like 48.5.
I would be very surprised to see the Celtics, barring some major injuries to the Sixers, being better than them and going further in the playoffs, which is ultimately what matters. The NBA has a problem, if we're being honest about it, and the problem is very simple. It's the regular season doesn't matter. No one cares. Viewership is down because it doesn't matter. We all know it doesn't matter. And so ultimately, the only thing that matters is playoff basketball. And so the Sixers have said, we're going to build a team for playoff basketball full of veterans that are going to take a bunch of rest days. Whereas the Celtics have kind of clung to this model of, we're going to look real good in the regular season. In the postseason, things might crumble a little bit because we don't have the talent anymore.
I'm left from all this wondering, how aren't other teams dealing with it? Are the Celtics just ahead of this in the fact that their number 2 ended up becoming the first $300 million player in the history of the NBA, so therefore they had 2 guys at maximum top dollar before anybody else did? Because every other team out there has guys making a ton of money. On like their top 2 guys on the books make a ton of money. You look at New York, Jaylen Brunson makes a hair under 40, but Cat's making like 53, and right behind it you got OG making like 31 or 32. Books are stacked across the league, so either when are other teams going to have to deal with this, or why aren't other teams having to deal with this? I am just left here wondering why Jaylen Brown had to be dealt today or this summer as a result of all of it.
I think Brad Stevens would tell you, and I think he was hinting at this, simply that they're trying to get ahead of it. That they feel like it's a wave that's coming, and so they're making their move now when other teams are maybe trying to get that one last gasp out of their current roster with the top-heavy salaries. But
it's a
bold move.
That is a very bold statement to make, that we're getting worse to try to get better for it, or at least the promise of being better in the future.
Yeah.
You're getting worse, and then you're digging yourself in a real deep hole that you have to front going forward.
Speaking of not getting worse, but playoffs and getting perhaps what you deserve, and I hate to say that, but let's go really quickly to World Cup. Now, first, I need to ask you a question. You're the expert in soccer in my life. When the player whose name I've forgotten, he gets his red card, which means he can't play the next game.
Balogun.
Right. His red card is overturned. We don't need to go into details on the machinations that get us there. Let's just say our president talks to their president, the FIFA president, and says...
A phone call was made, a question was asked.
Maybe some intimidation.
Lo and behold, he plays.
Right. However it happens, he gets to go out there and play. My question to you is a simple one. How often are red cards overturned, and do they normally give a reason for doing so? Because there was no reason given, and I don't, like, before I say what I'm about to say, I want to know fully, are red cards often overturned, or is it a pretty rare occurrence?
So that I don't know. Like, I don't know the precedent of that or in the World Cup setting. What I do know is that it's a relatively new thing to the sport of soccer within the last, definitely 10 years, but it's probably been less than that even. VAR, the video assistant referee, when that came in, it's just ruined the sport, because anything exciting that happens, you then have a 3-minute review, and you learn that a toenail was offsides according to some radar in the sky, and therefore a goal that happened 5 minutes ago has to come off the board. VAR is how the red card came about. There was a foul on the field,
right,
but there was no card given, and then when you slow it down to millisecond by millisecond, things look worse than they actually are,
or
it looks to be intent there.
May have not been something that should have been given in the first place.
Correct. The red card was kind of a sham to begin with.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't handed out on the field until after the VAR decision. Then he gets the red. So he goes from playing in the game to all of a sudden being removed and then being out of the next game. So the fact that the red card was kind of a sham is where the outrage from the American camp came from. But it looks real bad when a sports organization, which is known to be the most corrupt body the world of sport, bends to the will of the host nation to aid them in getting one of the better players back on the field, only for that nation to then go out and get
fall flat on their face.
Absolutely smoked.
Yeah. That third goal, what an embarrassment.
The whole game was an embarrassment.
The one where the goalie, whose name, again, I don't know enough about soccer. I know Christian Pulisic.
The goalie, I don't know if he doesn't still, but he got his start playing for the New England Revolution. Like he came from New England, is where.
Yeah, he was so far out of position
Matt Turner,
on that play.
Right? He was the guy in goal last night.
And it was like slow motion, like ball just rolling into the back of the net.
And then like when, again, we're breaking it down in replay and it's happening so much slower than what's happening out on the field, and his mind is scrambled at this point. But when the guy's lining up the shot to kick it and he's jumping vertically up in the air to the right of where the ball's about to travel, why aren't you diving parallel to the ground with your whole body?
Yeah.
Just, putting it on the line in front of that guy to try to knock the ball down.
Yeah. You got a hockey defensive man.
When it's your mistake that's that egregious. But
yeah. So what it looks to me like is first corruption, because like a president should not be calling a sports or international sports organization and begging them to have the player put back in, and the sports organization should not then put the player back in. That feels very corrupt to me. But then to top it all off, so we first look corrupt on the international stage. Then we look
childish for making the case,
and
making
then we
the
look,
circus.
and then we look inept because it doesn't matter, because we still get our butts beat by Belgium, who they're
good. They're
a fine team.
They're top 10 in the world. They're 9th right now.
No one thinks that they're winning the World Cup.
This is as not bad, because again, they're a very good team as they showed last night, but this is as poor quality of depth that Belgium has had in like the last decade. This is the least that they're working with.
So, but lost in all of this, I feel like, is if this red card snafu hadn't happened and he hadn't have played, they would have lost 4-1 probably, maybe 5-1, whatever. I don't know. Like, what doesn't matter? Like but at least I feel like people in America would have felt better about it, because people thought, hey, if they get to the round of 16, that's a decent success for the United States. Right now, they played pretty crappy competition leading up into this round, and I get that. But typically, America getting into the round of 16 is considered relatively successful in relation to where we normally finish, correct?
Yeah, I mean, just the entire awareness and expectation versus reality about what the U.S. squad was capable of this tournament had kind of been just taken out of the stratosphere to begin with. Like the idea that they were going to be contending for the cup or going to a quarterfinal or something. It's like, no, they got the deck stacked in their favor. They played a bunch of AA nations in the group.
Yeah.
They
had a very favorable draw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess I would ask you two questions. One, before the World Cup started, if I had said, hey, they'll make it into the round of 16 and lose to Belgium, how would you feel about that?
I would have asked like how they lost, because 4-1 would have been probably still embarrassing and showing that you're not capable of contending at that stage.
Okay.
Getting to the round of 16 was default. Like that's baseline what you have to do.
So they met their baseline.
If they didn't get to the round of 16, this World Cup would have been an abject failure because of
the competition.
A, because of the competition, and B, because of how much it was expanded. Remember, the tournament was expanded by 50% from 32 teams to 48, so therefore that expanded the knockout round from 16 to 32. You had double the chance to advance to the knockout round.
Okay. And so adding in the red card thing makes me feel worse, knowing very little about soccer. Does it make you feel worse?
No, the U.S. showed how they normally show at the World Cup. They get embarrassed when it matters, when they go up against a
So the red card thing is not...
The red card thing is an embarrassment on like the... I mean, if all I know is if any other country did it, how our media would react to it.
Losing our minds.
We would be a bunch of Dave Portnoys dressed up like clowns screaming endlessly.
Yes. Yeah, I actually, when you sent that, I pictured Dave Portnoy, like say Brazil did this exact thing.
He would be calling for the head of their president.
Like emergency meetings. Yeah. He would probably try to like gather people and...
Yeah. Because no one knows injustice against us like Americans.
Right. And so I find myself like for 2 seconds just putting myself in someone else's shoes and saying like, wow, this looks so bad. And it looks infinitely worse. Like, at least if you're going to do that, you should go out there and, like, show up. Yeah. The fact that we did that and then still didn't show up.
Just take it. Take it in any other form. Take it out of the World Cup and make it an AAU tournament, and a bunch of angry parents go to the board and complain and scream endlessly to make sure that one kid gets to play for their team, and then they go out and get run-ruled in a baseball game or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bad look regardless of the situation.
All right, so if I say corrupt and inept, I'm not wrong. That should be like the
the business motto of FIFA.
This is why I don't do soccer, Mark. Brought to you by Greenway Equipment Sales, your locally owned John Deere dealer. See the Smith Brothers in Bangor and Ellsworth because nothing runs like a deer. You can get a good deal there, though. Also brought to you by McDelivery through Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. 2 sausage McMuffins with egg, 2 hotcakes, 4 hash browns, 4 small hot coffees, all for just $19.99. The bundle is over 40% off, and for a limited time, order at your local family-owned McDonald's on Main Street, Union Street in Bangor, and Wilson Street in Brewer. I've also heard that McDonald's is getting a new crispy chicken. The strip is getting crispier and more delicious.
There is nothing wrong with that.
So I got to go back and get a new snack wrap is what I've been told, because I got to go try those again because the new one is
extra crispy,
extra delicious. Sounds good to me. I love a good piece of fried chicken. All right, when we come back, we'll talk some more Celtics and hear some more sound, perhaps, from Brad Stevens and Bill Chisholm. Welcome back to The Drive, brought to you by UMaine Athletics. This fall, it's time to pack the stands at Alphonse Stadium and cheer on Maine football. Season tickets are on sale now. They give you the best value and best seats for every home game. Visit goblackbears.com/tickets. And by Union Street Towing. If you're stuck on the side of the road, they have you covered 24/7 statewide. From breakdowns to lockouts, they'll get you moving fast. 942-4200, that's Union Street Towing, driven to be there when you need them the most. A couple of voices you heard right there. Let's see, we have Evan Cohen of
ESPN Radio
talking about why none of the things that they said make sense. And then Adam Jones and company saying Brad Stevens, if they were him, they'd be looking for their next jobs. I don't get any sense that Brad Stevens disagrees with the decision, though. To me,
so
I think
it was his move. He's seeing this for what it is. He's trying to get out in front of it.
I do. He felt genuine listening to him in that press conference. And so for instance, the question from John Corrales, who we'll hear from later in the second hour of the show, he kind of, in the middle of his question, said the salaries are the same, jokingly, yeah. But then he immediately was like, well, it's a shorter term. Yeah, I do find, whether or not it's right, I don't know. But I think Brad Stevens has bought into the theory of the trade.
I think there's a little more there in the underlying numbers of this team, in who gets paid out initially with the private equity getting involved and everything. I think there's, whether you want to call it pressure or actual directives, whatever it is, I think there's something there that wasn't there when Wick was just burning cash, signing checks, and trying to win as many titles as possible.
Well, sure. I think Wick was acting out of desperation with no care for finances whatsoever when he did.
I like that as a fan.
Right? But then he got his title, and then the year after we saw that team kind of...
We found out it wasn't Wick's team. It was Daddy's team, and Daddy sold it.
Right, and it was kind of disassembled before our eyes, first in the playoffs by the Knicks, but then ultimately by the front office. But I think they said, we have a window to win a title, and we're going to take advantage, and we're going to spend ungodly amounts of money to do it, something that most teams are not willing to do, and they did that. But the reality is the Celtics are now mired into the muck with all other teams. All the other teams now are in the same financial situation as the Celtics. Before, the Celtics were just pulling money from who knows where to win that title. And once they did that, it was okay, well, now we can step back from that brink and we can right the ship financially. I get that. I understand that.
I don't appreciate it as a fan, though.
Yeah, I also understand that. Both things can be true, right? We got to take a break here. Justin Turpin of WEEI is going to join us next. We'll start some Celtics, maybe go to some Boston General for him. Brought to you by Madden Generator Services, expert installation, dependable maintenance, and a free 7-year warranty on new Generac installs. They'll keep your home in the game. 951-4668. That's Madden Generator Services. Power you can count on. And by Fat Panda Boba Tea and Market on Harlow Street in Bangor next to Goslin's Bakery. Sip fresh boba, explore snacks, ramen, and their tasty Jamaican patties. Also visit their Brewer location, Wilson Street, next to Hannaford. We'll take that break. Sports Center weather, Justin Turpin on the other side. Welcome back into The Drive, brought to you by Premium Choice Broadband, local, family-owned, bringing affordable high-speed internet to Maine for over a decade. Call or email and mention PCB the ticket to get 1 month for free. If you're a new residential customer, visit PremiumChoiceBroadband.com for details. Let's go to our Heroes Hotline, brought to you by Heroes Sports Grill and Entertainment Center. Heroes, the place to be in downtown Bangor, and at HeroesSportsGrill.com. To check in with Justin Turpin of WEEI. Now, earlier in this show, Justin, I threaded the needle between Bill Chisholm and Brad Stevens and said simply, there's a pie, And Brad Stevens is saying you can't have two players taking up 70% of that pie, and then Bill Chisholm says the pie can stay the same amount. So I don't think they're in direct confrontation with each other in the statements that they made, but it feels like the majority of people are kind of picking and choosing to say that. I'm curious for your thoughts on, do you feel like the owner of the team and the GM of the team were speaking two different languages, or are you with me where it seems like they're saying the same thing just in very different ways?
That analogy is perfect. I might actually have to steal that because it was a financially motivated move, yes, but it wasn't necessarily about eliminating the cost. It was about finding a better way to utilize that spending. It wasn't they couldn't win with spending that much money in the cap. It's those two players specifically taking up that money. If it's Giannis, that's a different conversation. If you're having a guy, two players that aren't necessarily top 5, top 10 players taking up 70% of your cap, it's hard to build around them, and that's what they were getting at. So it wasn't necessarily about eliminating spending and cost. It was about finding different ways to utilize that and build a better team.
So if Aaron was able to thread that needle, Justin, I need you to thread the needle of making this make sense in the short term.
See, that's the million-dollar question. So, you can understand the trade in the long term, but in the short term, I still can't get behind this. First of all, if you went to Philadelphia in August with this trade package, they're going to take it. Paul George is on one of the worst contracts in the NBA. They were the reporting last week was how many picks the Sixers would have to attach to his contract to move him. So, they were going to move this contract. It would have been there in August. The big question is, why the urgency now? And why, if these two players, you still have two players taking up 70% of your cap, why would you do it now? Why wouldn't you give Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown another crack at it, a fully healthy crack at it? Obviously, Jason Tatum was 9 months removed from tearing his Achilles when he came back last year, and as great as he looked, was not 100%. And where that factors into him missing Game 7. So the short term, I don't understand it. And I think that's when you start to look at the question marks beyond, the flexibility and the optionality, which was the million-dollar word yesterday. It's, were they comfortable bringing back Jaylen and letting him accept the fact that it would be a lesser usage role? Were they comfortable with bringing him back after the season that he had and expecting him to be okay with that? I also think they're really doubling down on the things that they did great last year. Offensive rebounding, that was their biggest strength last year. They go out and get Mitchell Robinson, who is arguably the best, actually, I think the best offensive rebounder in basketball, and there's plenty of metrics to back that up. You're also great at taking care of the basketball. Who was your biggest turnover problem? Jaylen Brown. You get him out, and you bring in Mike Conley, who I don't think is going to be playing a ton of minutes for this team, but when he's on the court, will not turn the ball over. So I think in the short term, you're doubling down on what you saw worked last year. And I think that's the only answer I can really give to it, because other than that, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm with you on the timing of it. Just why not? Why not give him that extra year? They chose not to, whether that is because Jaylen is behind the scenes, was more upset than maybe we believed him to be, or they're so fractured. We may never know unless Jaylen decides to put it out there on a Twitch stream, which could happen at any moment for all we know. But so I'm curious, the makeup of this team now, it feels like they're expecting some of these younger guys to really make not just a step forward, but almost a leap. And I've seen some people comparing Peyton Pritchard to Jalen Brunson, and I think, well, that feels a bit much. But then you look at guys like Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Shireman, and it feels as though Brad Stevens in the front office and perhaps even Joe Mazzulla really do believe that these guys, unshackled from the usage rates of Jaylen Brown, can make a pretty big step forward next year. Do you buy that?
It's hard to believe that also, if you're saying it's going to be Ugo, right, if this is probably who they're thinking, Ugo, Baylor, Jordan Walsh, even Keita in some senses, all four of those guys continuing to they took such big leaps last year that expecting all four of them to do it again or just continue to get better feels a little bit wishful to me. I just think last year too, and I've been big on this recently too, just kind of looking back under the hood of the season they had last year. And you can't take away from the development that they had and the 56 wins and whatnot, but I just can't shake how many teams were purposely trying to lose last year that inflated their numbers a little bit, made them look a little bit better than they actually were. In the Eastern Conference alone, you had Washington, Indiana, Brooklyn, Milwaukee at the end of the year, Chicago at the end of the year. And then you go to the West and you got teams like Utah, like Sacramento, like Memphis, that's 40% of your schedule against teams that were purposely trying to lose. Of course, you're going to be the harder playing team against those those teams. Like the competition, you're not like they're not trying as hard. So of course you're going to look better and you're going to take advantage of that competition. So I do have some worries about that, but the good news is this organization has a very, very strong track record of developing talent. And I think last year was really a gold standard of that. You saw how many guys from up and down the roster got better, but it's just hard to fathom that they'd expect them all to take another big jump like that. Like, I think Ugo is acceptable, but like Jordan Walsh, it took him 3 years to take the first leap. Now you're just expecting him to build off it right away. I don't know. It feels a little wishful, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it certainly does. I wanted to follow up with what you just said because I was going to ask it towards the end of the conversation, but where you just talked about it now, it feels better to put it here. The NBA as a whole, regular season versus postseason, it's almost like two different worlds to me in what you're watching, the product on the court, the way the game is even played. Does the NBA have a pretty serious regular season versus postseason problem on their hands that they don't know how to solve right now?
100%, and they don't do anything to alleviate it. Like, my biggest thing is with the officiating. If something is a foul in October, it should be a foul in June in the NBA Finals. That is how the rules should be played. If it's a foul, it's a foul. None of this, like, wait to see if it goes in, and then we'll call a foul, or the superstar treatment. Like, just play it by the rules. And I also think part of that, especially with the way the game's played now and the pace and the three-point volumes and whatnot, that also plays into it. Because I think the Celtics are a gold standard of this. 3 of the last 4 years, they've bowed out of the playoffs earlier than expected. I know the conference finals in 2022 against the Heat, but that was a team they should have won. They were in the conference final, but it was an 8 seed, and you fell down 0-3. Like, yeah, that you should have won that series, and the same thing with the Knicks series, and certainly last year against Philadelphia. 3 of the last 4 years, they've bowed out because they haven't been able to make their three-point shots, and the shot volume is different, like the shot consistency and all that. Like, that's something you can do across an 82-game sample. You can't do that across a 7-game series, and it's burned them now 3 of the last 4 years. So I think that also plays into it, just the play style of some of these teams, and I think the Celtics are a good example of that.
Talking with Justin Turpin of WEEI on the Heroes Hotline. It's been, 6 days since we first found out about this trade last week, and inevitably over that time we've heard some of the spin, some of the anti-Jaylen Brown stuff being in the market that he is leaving. I'm just curious, did you hear any of that before, like, the last 6 days? The fact that he thought he was the smartest guy in the room, all this stuff nationally that we're hearing, or is that just kind of he got traded, so now the team is trying to save face?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. And I think that's just kind of how the Celtics run their business. They don't want it getting out publicly like that. And, it's tough to thread that needle when you're talking about a guy like Giannis. And then all of a sudden, everyone knows you were shopping Jaylen, so it's out there now, and teams are trying to depreciate that value. So I think a lot of that was driven from the outside and other teams. Like, the most prominent one to me was the 7th best player relayed by Bobby Marks, like, from an analytics guy that was anonymous. Like, that felt like other teams trying to drive down the price because they knew the Celtics were shopping him. And it felt pretty obvious that the Celtics were working with some urgency, and teams around the league knew that. So they were kind of capitalizing on that. Other than, like, the Celtics, like, I think there were some frustrations, I'd imagine, with the Twitch stream and stuff because they don't like that stuff. And I can't imagine they like it after losing. You lose a Game 7 at home, blow a 3-1 series lead for the first time in franchise history. And the next day, Jaylen Brown's on Twitch stream saying it was his best season, or his favorite season. He keeps doubling down on it being his favorite season. I'm not sure they liked all that, but I think a lot of that was coming from the outside more so than it was the Celtics.
I've also heard recently about, like, how Jaylen's not doing himself any favors, the fact that he's going to go back against everything that comes out against him. Is there another number 2 in the NBA that's anything comparable to what Jaylen Brown is? The fact that he at one point signed the largest contract in NBA history, maybe isn't afraid to speak his opinion, but also isn't necessarily the best guy on his team, so therefore teams in the league view it a little differently and aren't willing to give it that 1A leash that other guys get.
No, I really don't think there is. Like, because there's only a handful of players on these Supermax deals. And to be honest, if we're looking back on Jaylen Brown before he got that contract, like, I don't think many teams around the league would have done that. It's just the Celtics knew that they had to capitalize this window with those two here, and that's why they did it. And obviously Brad Stevens has a great deal of respect and admiration for him. Like, he coached him for 5 years, went upstairs, and he believed in him so much that he made him the highest paid player in NBA history at the time. So that plays into it, but I think that was part of the reason that they struggled to move him this offseason as well, and the value wasn't as high as a lot of people expected, is because teams around the league, and turns out even the Celtics don't view him at the value that he's at right now with that contract. So I don't think there really is like a comparable situation to this.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the way that the Celtics and Celtics fans valued Jaylen Brown and the way the rest of the NBA valued Jaylen Brown, I mean, the gap there was substantial, right? I mean, that's the biggest surprise perhaps of all of this. And then I think if you ask me, like, what's the one thing that still blows your mind about this deal, having had a few days to digest it, it's the fact that they sent him to the 76ers, the team that just directly knocked them out of the playoffs. And I can't help but feel like in the short term, that could come back to bite them pretty hard if this thing goes the way a lot of people think it's going to go with them and the Celtics this next season.
Oh, no doubt. And Brad Stevens, the schedule is not out yet for the preseason, but he let it leak a little bit yesterday that they're going to see him 6 times before the playoffs, because they're going to play him twice in the preseason and 4 in the regular season. So, yeah, this could immediately backfire, especially because the Celtics, as constructed right now, can still be a good team. Like, obviously, you still have the players that were there with Jaylen Brown last year. You're expecting those guys to take another leap. If they can do it, that's obviously great. You add Mitchell Robinson, who plays to your strengths, and you add Paul George, who can still contribute. It's just the problem is, can these guys stay on the floor? Like, what does Jason Tatum's workload look like next year? Now fully recovered, a year removed from the injury. What does his workload look like? Does he go back to playing every single minute like he did before, or do they stagger him, not let him play back-to-backs and kind of watch his minutes? Same thing with Paul George. Like, he's played, over 70 games once since the 2019-2020 season? Like, he doesn't really stay on the floor. Mitchell Robinson has missed 37% of the games that he's been eligible for since he's been in the league, and the Knicks last year carefully managed his minutes all year. So you have 3 guys that could possibly not be playing on back-to-backs. Like, I just don't understand, like, how you're going to keep these guys fresh for the postseason, just given the history of what you're looking at. So, yeah, this could easily backfire, especially given how wide open the Eastern Conference is.
Yeah, hey, Justin, thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Justin Turpin, WEEI. We're brought to you by Casella. Good pay, good people, good life. Find your place at powerofhardwork.com. And by Dairy Queen of Old Town. The DQ $7 chicken strip meal has it all. 100% white meat chicken, seasoned chicken strips, full-size fries, a drink, and a DQ sundae, all for just $7. Visit 613 Stillwater Avenue in Old Town. We'll take a break. We'll wrap up the first hour of the show. Mark, are you going to crash out?
Me?
I mean, it says World Cup crash out. Or
I was
just
talking
saying,
about the U.S.
Okay, so just in general, the U.S. Okay, do we have like fans or something? Are fans crashing out? I just feel like this is exactly what I expected was going to happen, and so I'm kind of... It is what it is.
Oh, I think it's what most rational people should have expected, but
okay.
We don't live in a rational world.
That's a fact. We'll talk about that next on The Drive. Yes, sir. Well, it was fun while it lasted, Team USA. I really enjoyed watching it in Spanish. That was my favorite part. Yeah.
Belgium calls last night.
Quite impressive how long they're able to hold the goal call.
Yeah.
So,
they got a good breath, those Spanish announcers.
They sure do. Brought to you by Bangor Mall Cinema, Greater Bangor's favorite hometown theater for over 40 years. Bangor Mall Cinema, luxury of recliners and upgraded food menu. Find showtimes. Reserve your seat at yourneighborhoodtheater.com. And, of course, brought to you by Dean's Detailing, the leader in auto detailing for 55 years. Check them out at deansdetailing.com. So they're over for the U.S., although the games are still happening.
The World Cup is still happening. There's a game right now. In fact, like the action at the World Cup, which has kind of been distracted by the U.S.'s involvement in everything, it's been a fantastic tournament. I was one of the people that was staunchly against the expansion of it, thinking that it's just watering down the competition and nothing else. It's actually brought in some of the better storylines, like Cape Verde getting an opportunity to advance to the knockout round and going toe-to-toe with Argentina until maybe the referees start to favor the reigning champion over them. But like the other night, I think it was England and Mexico. England at Mexico. The game was played in Mexico City. One of the best soccer games I've ever watched. Like, there's been fantastic action from it. The issue is this country was just told that the U.S. was going to be part of that fantastic action when it actually counted, and
yeah,
I'm sorry, you were lied to.
So they had up on the TV in our studio here a couple minutes ago, like the last 20 or so years, a couple decades worth of finishes for Team USA, and round of 16 is the best that they've done on the men's side. Now the women's side, I think they've done better.
Oh, they've won it.
Yeah,
they're legitimately one of the best teams in the world.
Right, but the men have always been kind of second fiddle, if not third fiddle,
or fourth or fifth. Or
yeah, and I mean that's
16th on the world stage.
So I think to expect that was going to be different because it happened here is kind of crazy to me.
Well, it was also
soccer's having a bit of a moment in the U.S. I guess overall.
Well, we say that like every World Cup kind of because
the Hearts of Pine in Portland are proving that it's a durable sport.
Yeah, certainly on like a niche sense like that, which it's really unfortunate that the way just those leagues are set up, like there's no opportunity for advancement for the Hearts of Pine. They can do as well as they can do. They can win the league, but they're stuck in their league. There's no chance to jump up to the MLS, which is how soccer works everywhere else in the globe except for in this country. So that'd be cool if they could actually have the opportunity to go up and compete against the bigger clubs. But the other issue with the United States is that this team, this clutch of players, has been looked at for the last 5 to 6 years as kind of the golden boys, the golden age. And it's materializing much like Roman Anthony and Marcelo Mayer making it to the major leagues. And I mean, Anthony was great for 70 games last year, but it's kind of like Marcelo Mayer progressing through the minors into the majors. It's falling flat when it gets here.
Yeah. It reminds me of, do you remember the name Oliver Wahlstrom?
Yeah, the hockey player.
Yeah, like he was coming to UMaine, and you watch the highlight film as like a 13-year-old kid, and you're like, holy crap, this kid is going to be
spinning goal at the Garden as a youth player.
One of the most amazing hockey players to ever play, and the expectations are through the roof, and then I don't even know where he is anymore.
No, I mean, he made it to the NHL as like an 18 or 19-year-old, but I'm not confident he's in the league still. No,
at age whatever he must be now, which he's got to be closing in on 25, 26. Whatever it happens to be, it feels like we hyperinflate U.S. hockey players, or U.S. soccer players, excuse me, and ultimately it's to our own demise because we always are who we thought we were, which is, a country that has a lot of money to throw at the problem, but still doesn't have the talent to actually live up to it. And that's largely because we have 4 sports that are significantly more important to our country. And so you can only have so many athletes from one country that are at elite levels.
And it's every other country on the globe handpicking their best athletes for this particular purpose because this is the only thing going on in most of those countries from a major athletic standpoint.
Yeah. Now, honestly, I think another country will surpass us in basketball talent in like the Olympics before we see the U.S. win a World Cup on the men's side. Like, I think if you look at the NBA...
It's probably a safer bet, honestly.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you look at the NBA today, the best players are almost always foreign-born. The best younger players, Cooper Flag aside, he's like the great hope for America. But like all of the players that were once the great players from America, LeBron James, James Harden, those guys.
Oh, it's a European wave now.
Kevin Durant, they're getting old and they're not going to be around much longer. And the new wave of players coming over, is just infinitely more talented than the U.S. And so I feel like that's going to happen. But I don't know.
I mean, it's a good poll question, certainly, for later on in the week. And I think just the way the games are trending, basketball would be the safe bet. By the way, Oliver Wahlstrom, 42 points in the AHL last year.
Okay.
So for San Jose's
how
affiliate.
Old is he? Did I get the age right?
He is, I don't know. It's on here somewhere. 26.
I think I said 25 or 27.
He and my wife have the same birthday.
Yeah, there you go. That's something to...
You remember he played 16 games for the Bruins last year? Not like this season, but the year before, 24-25.
I had no idea.
Goal and an assist.
Wow. Good for him. All right. We are brought to you by our social media channels. 99 The Ticket on Facebook, 99 The Ticket on Instagram, sports.net.maine on TikTok, and our YouTube page, Sportsnet Maine. We have this owl in our studio now. Not a physical owl. Well, it is physical.
It's physical, and it follows us. Like earlier when you were doing the weather and leaning way back, it was just looking at a wall, and then slowly its eyes were trying to find you.
Do you have eyes on your side?
Oh, I've got eyes.
Okay. So it's a 360 camera here in the studio now, and it's probably, I can touch it. It's that close to me. And it has these eyeballs that just stare into your soul. And it does sort of kind of resemble an owl. And so we're going to start posting some of our radio clips.
Some social clips.
To the social side of things, the video side of things. So I apologize. Some days, a lot of days I come in here after going to the gym And so you're just going to see me looking real grungy. Today I'm wearing like a collared shirt.
I looked at the camera for the first time during the course of today's show, and just with the way both of us are seated today, you're getting a lot of chest from the two of us today. You're getting a lot of...
I'm covering
a lot of
up as we
happening
speak.
Up top.
Yeah, well, you got the golden necklace going on too. I have an excuse. I was playing with my nephews, and they kept unbuttoning my shirt. So I'm going to button it back up now because now you've made me self-conscious of it. But so anyway, you'll see. I guess you could see that hypothetically, but you'll certainly see more of us visually. And for that, I apologize on those social media channels in the next coming days and weeks. And I'm going to apply that apology to the morning roast as well, because they're getting up really early in the morning.
Oh, some of those videos are already up there.
I've seen a clip of them, and they're wearing, like, I'm pretty sure, like, Sully might be wearing the shirt that he slept in the night before.
Oh, he definitely is.
I don't judge at all.
I would, too, if I was waking up at that hour.
Exactly. So I do not judge him. I just feel bad for all of our listeners.
It's a very tight image.
Yes.
For your face to be in front of at like 5:55 a.m.
Yeah. And it's sitting so close to me. And we've put it on a
pedestal.
To-go container.
Well, like that's one way of saying it.
I mean, what else would you call that? It's a plastic food container that is holding this very expensive 360-degree camera that is...
just a overturned piece of Tupperware. That's our stand here.
I wish you could see that in the video. Like, I would rather they see that than us, if I'm being honest with you. But, all right. That does it for the first hour of the show. The Drive Poll, Sox Props, Sox Talk, John Corrales of S Sports Illustrated, all that and more coming up next.